So from an announcement standpoint, we mentioned Gravitate as the sponsor for section 2. I'm using the word section, session, pillar as the same thing. Okay, so I hope you're all following me on that. Session 3 is sponsored by IMS Capital. There's Devin in too. By IMS Capital. And one thing that I was reminded to mention is our illustrator for the event today. So you might have noticed that all of the ads coming out all have really wonderful custom illustrations. And our illustrator's name is Karen. What's her last name? Let's see. Karen, somebody tell me what her last name is. I know you're here. Servin. There you are, Karen. She's there in the chat section too. So Karen Servin was our illustrator for this event, and we're very grateful for the work that she has put in so far. So it's our pop quiz number 3. What is the name of this pillar? What and a panelist cannot answer. Okay, what is the name of this pillar number 3? Content section number 3. Opportunity. Thank you, Laura. Very good. Okay, so the way that we are going to do section 3 here is I will go ahead and introduce our speaker. You see we've got the rest of the panelists here, and I love your beautiful faces, but you can go ahead and turn off your video while Allison is speaking, because we just want to see her face. You all are cute, and I said Allison, I meant Lindsay. I apologize. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and intro Lindsay. Lindsay, you can turn on your video and audio as I'm getting ready to announce you so I can watch your face while I talk about you, because that's one of my favorite things to do. I see you here, Lindsay, but your video isn't on yet. Can you turn your video on? There you are. And you can turn, yeah, there you go. Okay, so we got Lindsay here. Let me go ahead and introduce you, Lindsay. Okay, so Lindsay is the founder and CEO of Hub and Ltd. Is that limited? Is that how you say that? Okay. In 2004, Lindsay founded Hub. It's a Portland-based design and strategy agency. They're dedicated to using the power of design for good by creating beautiful things that make a positive impact on the world. The Hub team lives for new challenges, solving problems that haven't been defined yet, like how to adjust your strategy during an unprecedented global pandemic, perhaps. Her experience with nonprofits, higher ed, large private companies, and local communities enables her to provide actionable insights across a variety of industries. So, Lindsay, we are happy to have you here. I feel like it's time to break out my applause app again for a second. Can we bring Lindsay to the stage? You can unmute yourself now, and I swear, see, there is a place for a developer to make a better applause app.
So beautiful. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Lindsay, you have the floor. You got about 15, 20 minutes, and then we will bring the rest of the panelists on.
All right. Oh, man. You know, I remember sitting so vividly in my seat, thinking that this whole COVID-19 was a whole bunch of nonsense. And I will never forget when I got the phone call from my team and they told me that they would not be coming into the studio the next day. And I swear to God, it's like somebody picked me up and dropped me right back down into 2008 in the, like, when the recession just hit Hub like a ton of bricks. And the moment that came to the forefront of my mind was I was at an award ceremony, which the idea of that is so ridiculous right now. And I was talking with another agency owner that had, I think I was maybe 4 years old as an agency at that point. And this guy had like umpteen years on me. And I was talking with him, I think I was on the verge of tears. And I was like, I don't know what we're going to do or how we're going to survive this. And he looked at me with like the most compassionate eyes. And in the calmest voice said, here's the thing. When you know what you need to do, act fast. And when my team told me that they were going to be working from home, oh my God, I like in 2.2 seconds was the first thing I did was pick up the phone and call every single institution that we owe money to on a monthly basis. For example, our rent, my bank, every single one. I just went down the list and I was like, hey, this is a thing. I am now admitting that it's real. What are you doing to help through this crisis? And the scary thing was, a lot of them, I was the first person calling to ask that question. I knew that my number one goal was is still goal today, is to stay alive as a company. And I knew at that moment that a lot of the decisions that I was going to have to make were not going to be easy. They were going to hurt me and they were going to scare my team. And the very first thing that I knew that I needed to get a handle on was our cash. Like, I've heard in here who's king and who's queen. And I will tell you that cash is king and queen. It is the reigner of everything. And I immediately started talking with my cash people. I talked with my bookkeeper. I talked with my finance guy. And we ran every single report that we possibly could. And we made a plan of how to stretch that out as long as possible. I also, the first 14 years of my company and the mission that I had really didn't make sense to anyone until Brene Brown came onto the scene. And all of a sudden, she makes my life make sense, because my mission for the first 14 years were, how do I create a place where people can be 100% themselves and have fun at work, right? And so that's the culture that I've been like spending my lifeblood pouring myself into. And thank God, because when this rolled around, this culture that I had built, it is my number one goal, to keep my team together, who I refer to as a team of magical unicorns. Like, they are so talented and they all have these insane +1 skills. One of the things that we realized pretty early on is, because they all love each other so much, that we meet every morning for, I don't know, we say that it's going to be like a 10 to 15 minute meeting. It usually turns into like 30 to 45 minutes because everybody is ridiculous and funny. And that, thank God we did that and have been doing that for years, because it really easily transitioned over into daily touch points with the team on Zoom. And pretty early on, my team, I could see their faces just kind of like shut down on the Zoom calls, which, because we've got a relationship, I could see that there was something happening. And I zoomed in on it. I was like, are you okay? What's happening? And thank God that they were willing to be vulnerable back with me after all these years of being vulnerable with them, because they were able to voice how terrified they were that they were all going to get fired. And it was in that moment that I realized that I needed to be super transparent with every single action that I was taking. So I shared with them our financial runway. I shared with them where we were in the process of applying with the PPP. I shared with them what we were doing in terms of all the different challenges that I was running up against. I was sharing it as appropriate, right? And that, because if I knew that if I didn't give them those facts, they would make up stories that were like 10 times worse than what I had ever intended. The very first thing in that morning meeting, being vulnerable with everybody, is I was like, hey, listen, we have two options. Either we're going to look at layoffs, which I am fiercely opposing, or we need to roll out pay cuts like today, like retroactively for the last 2 weeks. We need to immediately start applying what's happening right now. And the whole team was like, 100%, whatever we can do to stay together as a team, which like just warmed my heart. That was a moment for sure. And the other thing that I realized when one of the team members had expressed her fear of being fired is that I needed to set up one-on-one phone calls with them and touch base with them with regularity. So now we have, 15 to 30-minute phone calls every 2 weeks. And that has been a game changer, because they are struggling. Like, we are collectively grieving what we used to have, and it's gone. And because it's not my first rodeo with a really hard time, I have pieces that I can offer to them, right? Some kind of, or just an ear to friggin' listen to what's happening for them. And that, as a being a human, makes a big difference. Um, one of the big lessons that I learned in 2008 was just how much I didn't know. And since that time, I have collected people. I call them, yeah, like I have built this community of experts. So every time I run into something that I don't know, I have a bat phone with a direct line to somebody that knows all of it. When one of my favorite sayings is, "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear." And I, through this time, am so thankful for all the teachers that I have collected. I have a finance guy that had a direct line to the SBA, so I could figure out what was going on with the PPP. He was connected with another guy that I was connected with that was a lawyer who works in finance. So he could analyze all of the documents that were coming through to make sure that I wasn't signing something that was going to be detrimental to me later. I was on the phone with my banker constantly helping me figure out what exactly I needed to have in place. So when their website opened, I was like ready to go. I didn't have to hesitate or go collect anything. My bookkeeper was right there. Like I was literally texting her with regularity to be like, "I need this. Can you get me that?" Yes. And she would just, as needed, send me everything. There's this saying that it takes a village to raise a baby. And I have often referred to Hub as my first child. And I'm so, and will for always, for eternity, be grateful to the community that supports this company. It's priceless. There was a moment, the first week that we were all working from home, God, I don't know if it was from being in everybody's face and like walking around and watching like how they were tapping their computer, or just being constantly in motion with people, but I felt seasick for a good solid 7 days. Like it was nasty. And there was this moment where I kind of like my system settled, thank God, and I was going for a walk, which was like a gift to be able to still go for walks. And this really, what I found to be very annoying, like statement popped into my head from 2009, which was something that was said often in 2009, which I found offensive. Never waste a crisis. And when that thought came in, I was like, I hate that. I hate that so much. And then I was like, whoa, wait a second. In 3 or 4 years, it was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, my company transitioned our mission from focusing solely on the employee in this internal landscape to really, how do we use our strategy and branding to help make the world a better place, right? So how do we show up? And if we're really going to own that, isn't like, and we're going to talk that talk, isn't now the time to walk that walk? And if not now, when? That was like the mantra that came into me. And I was so overwhelmed, and I got really, bear with me, I got really excited because I knew that creative thinking has never been needed more than now. I was talking with one of my mentors, and she said, and she flies, like if I fly at like a 20,000 foot view for my company, she's at like 80,000 feet, and she's constantly looking from a national and global level. Like it's nuts. And she's been saying to me for a long time, no one is looking at the critical problems. And we are seeing that now. This is evidence that no one has been thinking about all of this. And so with that way too much information, I went to my team and I was like, oh my God, what can we do, you guys? Like, what actually can we put into place? On our one-on-one calls today, I want to hear your thoughts because you guys are genius, and I know that we can come up with something. And as I talked with each person, one of my team said, I am just so grateful to be busy. Like, please just keep me busy because it's making me feel like I'm adding and contributing to what's happening, and it's keeping me out of my head. And I was like, okay, all right, cool. And as I was talking to each one of my teammates, each one of them kind of built on that. And by the end of the day, we had come up with a concept that completely takes our mission and puts it into action. And we came up with Hub Helping Hands, which is us going out into the world and saying, listen, people are struggling right now. They might not be able to have the resources that it would take to hire us like they would normally, but we need to keep ourselves busy and we want to be of service. So are you interested in asking for help, which is like one of the most difficult things to do ever? And are you willing to accept what we have to offer? And can we be creative about what that compensation package looks like? Can you like give us a shout out on Instagram? Can you share us with your network? Can you like, what is it that you can't afford, right? Because it doesn't just have to be a freebie that oftentimes doesn't feel good to anybody. And what I loved about this is it was a total triple win. Like we got to help make a difference on mission, on brand. We get to meet new people, one of my all-time favorite things. And my team gets to stay busy being creative and solving problems. Like blows my mind. Blows my mind that we came up with that in literally less than 8 hours. It was probably whatever I have. It took about 4 hours to get there. And I was like, oh my God, my team. Amazing. There's a few things that I just want to remind people about. And they feel really important to me. And so I just want to bring those forward. You didn't get here this far in your business by mistake. Like, I really encourage people to know what they know and to trust that. My mentor, one of the things that she says with regularity, like if I ever bump up against a struggle, she says, listen, this is the time that I want you to take a minute and go back to the core of your business. What is your core? Cut away the fat and focus, because that is how you establish success in the first place, and that is where your strength lies. This is what I call my Goodwill Hunting moment. That COVID-19 and the struggles that you're in with your business are not your fault. And the faster that you can move through that grief and fear, the sooner that you'll be available to get back to helping your company survive. One of my favorite therapist friends told me this magic secret, which I did not know until now, which I find amazing because I love therapy and collect things like this. So this is a new gift that I'm super stoked to be able to share. When the brain is in fear, we have the capacity to think like a 3 to 8 year old. And we can only plan to the next thing, one thing at a time. It's like super staccato. And when the brain is relaxed and calm, I will say calm, not relaxed. When the brain is calm, we have access to what she referred to as the 20 to 50 year old brain. And that in that space, you can see around corners, you can handle things calmly, you can be creative in how you're problem solving, and your planning skills, you can plan long term, which I find so helpful, so helpful. So with that, I really critically encourage you to do whatever you can to keep your brain calm. And one of the things that she recommended was to find a schedule, like put yourself on a routine, because right now being at home, everything can be very unstructured, which can make for a lot of internal chaos. And she was like, you wake up at the same time every day. You eat breakfast, you eat lunch, you eat dinner, get some exercise, breathe, and then go to bed at a regular, reasonable hour. And when you're calm, that's when you can start thinking about how you want to market your business. I went for a walk this morning with one of my dear friends who works at a ginormous organization that is global, and they operate in how to handle all of this on a people level and on a they are the experts that people would hire to have them come in and fix this stuff. And I was talking to her about what I was going to be talking with you guys today. And I said, I have all these things in mind that I want to tell people to do, but it feels like it feels very relevant right now. Like, what is your company at this ginormous level doing? And she said, first and foremost, really the only thing that we're talking about is being the trusted advisor for your clients so that you are there for them during this really challenging time. And when we get out of this, they'll look back and remember the experience that they had with you, and they will be even more invested in what you're doing. Kind of some of the questions that I wanted to ask you guys to think about are, if you are in a calm place and you're not in a panic, can you look around your table and see what expert you're missing? Who do you need at that table to help round out the things that you aren't an expert in? And once you identify them, are they already in your organization and you just haven't been utilizing them? Are they out in the world and you need help finding them? Like, start really leaning on that network. And then really looking at what you're already doing. Like, what have you been doing? What's working? Did it stop working because of this? Or has it not been working for a while and you've been in denial? How are you communicating? How are you talking? There's been a lot of talk about authenticity. It's legit. We can tell when people are not being true. It's a complete energetic vibe. And to try to think that you're fooling anybody is not going to get you anywhere. I am really excited for our panel discussion to get into the tactics. I feel like I've already heard a lot of tactics today. I've taken a lot of notes, but I'm excited to open it up to everybody and hear what we as a group and as a collective and what you guys have for questions for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsay. I feel like when you talked about going to bed at a reasonable hour, something got caught in my throat, which is like my projection of my own problems. And then the first time I try to speak, it's still there. So, and I'm complaining in the chat section how I get annoyed when my Breathe app reminds me, like, just a minute of breath a day will help you. I'm like, thanks. Exactly.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get everybody on the panel. Let's get our video and our audio enabled. And I am going to go through and introduce everybody real quick. And we'll kind of go from there. Okay, we'll get into the last bit of our panel discussion. So when I say who you are, I want you to wave and say hi to everybody so they know who you are. So let's start with Devin. Can you say hi?
Hi.
Okay, so that's Devin. Devin is the Senior Digital Strategist and PPC Team Lead at Intuitive Digital. In addition to her paid search work for a vast array of clients, Devin has over 10 years of experience in trauma and crisis management pertaining to the opiate epidemic, preparing her to approach the current public health emergency with compassion, empathy, and practicality. Homegrown in Walla Walla, she's a Washington native as well. Okay, so that's Devin. How about Flint? Flint, can you say hi to everybody? Okay, so Flint is the Director of Sales and Marketing at Gravitate. In his time at Gravitate, he's consulted with thousands of businesses, so he's heard it all and has been listening intently since COVID-19 hit. He's well aware of the marketing challenges for businesses of all sizes and truly cares about helping clients find practical solutions. So that is Flint. Now we've got Jamie. Jamie, can you say hi?
Hello.
Okay, so Jamie is the owner of Team 302 Productions. If he isn't watching the original Karate Kid, he's helping businesses develop relevant video strategy and assets. He knows that to be successful right now, businesses must understand the needs and perspective of their audience more than ever before. We talked about that a little bit in our earlier session, so I like seeing that there. Okay, let's introduce Jeremy. So you all heard from Jeremy a little bit earlier. Say hi, Jeremy. Jeremy is the president of Tag, but he's also the owner and lead developer at Endeavor. Jeremy's an experienced web developer, made a major career change in response to the 2008 financial crisis and couldn't be happier about it. He understands major change is unsettling and is an example of how it's possible to come out of it stronger. So that's Jeremy. And then the last person on our panel 3 here is Allison. Allison, say hi.
Hey.
Allison is an email deliverability consultant at Braze. She helps customers maximize their email campaigns ROI with over 5 years of experience in the email space, including managing an ESP abuse desk, which is less violent than it sounds. Allison has a keen understanding of what not to do during a crisis and beyond. She enjoys all things in excess except email. Okay. I really like that. I enjoy a lot of things in excess too.
Like the band in excess.
Yes. Okay. So as we're going through session 3 here, I have a couple of questions that came in from registration that are specifically for this session. But I want to prompt everybody in attendance that this is really kind of our directive based panel. So if you have legitimate questions about what to do about specific things, we're going to try to answer as much of those as possible during this session too. So utilize your Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom window to submit some questions there so that we can get as much answered as possible. Okay, so no pressure to all of you. You need to solve everyone's problems. Okay?
On it. Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. So let's start looking back at Lindsay's talk a little bit. So can I have any of you,
Hey, sorry to interrupt. Oh,
yes, please go ahead.
I think we forgot to introduce Simeon.
No, I was going to slide in.
That's funny. I wonder if it was on purpose because, Simeon, just
psychology-wise,
crap all the time. Where is he at the end of the, did I just not go down far enough or did I legitimately skip you? I did. I legitimately skipped your bio. Let me read it. Simeon's
you don't have to read it.
I'm going to do it anyway. Now it'll be fun. Simeon's the owner of Kid Giant. Oh, and the first line of his is content is king. I'm going to say content is queen. Now more than ever with people stuck at home. The more companies can put out there, the better position they'll be in to rebound when things return to normal. Simeon's video production company makes high quality visuals possible for all. And I have worked with Simeon quite a few times and he does great work. He just bothers me, so we're going to be fine. Okay. So let's look back at what Lindsay had to say a little bit. There were a lot of really, really good quotables from that. And one of the main themes that she brought through was moving your mindset and your team's mindset from fear to a place of calm where we can make better decisions. So do any of you have an example of how you've either been doing that internally or you've been helping some of your clients do this as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Nobody else is going to take it.
Talk to me about it, Simeon.
Keeping people calm, because as we were talking about, like people can't pay, and trying to put their mind at ease is like, okay, I know that you're going to come back from this. As long as we can get you content right now, we can move forward in the future. So let's put everything on hold. All invoices can stop for the moment. And when we get our feedback on the ground, that's when you can start paying, but let's keep the content flowing so you don't, go out of. So that way they're not freaking out over their social media stuff or whatever. And that way I'm actually having things to do with knowing that in the future there will be compensation, but not having them have to worry about that right now. So trying to help them kind of keep a
that kind of bridges a little bit of the content that we talked about in session 2, I believe, when we were talking about generosity. How can we flex a little bit to help others continue to succeed? And that definitely can bring a bit more of a sense of calm and control. Does anybody else have examples, even if it's from an individual level? What has helped bring you from this sense of fear to a sense of calm where you can make better long-term decisions?
We're finding a lot of more practical, small, digestible type initiatives have been really helpful. So instead of trying to think about everything and getting super overwhelmed by what you could do or what you haven't done in the past, saying, hey, we've been meaning to clean up your SEO a bit in this area. Let's just do that. Let's get that done. It's not overwhelming. It has a start date and an end date and feels like you've accomplished something. And then the other thing in this time, if we do all this, let's say we did a huge COVID campaign, which is not a great idea in some ways, but let's say that's what you did. That's useless after this calms down, right? So thinking about something that is going to help in the short and the long term. And so really just trying to thread that needle of somewhat simple and yet long-term benefit is kind of where we've been going with it. So if you're looking for examples, that SEO one I think is a good one. Just picking something where we say, this is 5 hours of work, is a tangible outcome, even if that might take a while to bear fruit. And it also has a very tangible punch list in terms of what we're getting done. It isn't wearing off in the weeds thinking about sort of some crazy new strategy.
Anish, Devin, I'll come right to you after this. Anish put in the chat section here, probably for some of the other business owners who might not know, what is SEO, right? So SEO is basically search engine optimization. It's putting content on your website and throughout the internet that helps you get found online when people are searching for things in the search engines. So those are kind of short-term things that you can do that have a long-term effect. Instead of maybe trying to run a targeted campaign to get conversions right now, you can be putting those investments towards short-term projects with long-term yield like SEO. Okay, Devin, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing on the paid side, making small adjustments to things like ad copy, call outs, things like that. It's really easy to take that first step and they can be easily reversed when all this is over. So simple things like just updating your hours, acknowledging whether you're open or not, acknowledging any small differences in hours and operations, extra cleaning procedures, anything like that. All of those are really easy to put in social media posts and paid ads and all of that. And then when it's over, you can just wipe them out and not have to worry about them again.
Somebody in chat section here, Brittany from Boy Hype, says for a lot of her food and restaurant establishment clients, she's been working on updating some of their print materials that they haven't had the time for before, so that when it's time to open back up again, they've got some new fresh looking content that maybe they wouldn't have made a priority before.
I think something that's worked both for me individually and with clients, and it's very simple, is that I move out of fear by just going into problem solving mode, that it becomes a problem to solve. And what is helpful for me is when I write it down. I'm a composition notebook person, so I physically write it out. And if I write down the problem and I can look at it and see it, whether it's just for me as a company and that's a problem I can solve, I can come up with steps. It also works with clients as well. We started projects that began before COVID-19 and then we're midway through. And they're like, well, what do we do? We still need material to shoot. How do we move from here to there? And all we did was start writing down the problems, and even things like billing just goes into that bucket. And we just look at that together, right? It's like we hold it out and we say, okay, here's the thing that we're figuring out together. Let's go one by one. What content do you need? How are we going to pay for this? Does your message change? And just seems easy and simple, but it really helps my brain and my psyche not become overwhelmed.
I don't remember where I heard it, but I heard somewhere that in order for something to become real, it has to go from 1D, like within your own mind, to 2D, like written down, before it can become 3D, before it can be actually brought into reality. So sometimes when you are feeling that out of control, just that act of writing it down, like you're saying, kind of helps make it more real. You feel more in control.
Yeah, and I see what the problem actually is and not what it feels like inside, right? Inside it feels enormous and it's just in this cavern of my brain. But when I see it written down, I'm like, oh, actually, there's only 2 things I have to solve. So never mind, I can do that this afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so one thing that is a specific question that I wanted to put towards Devin, because I think when we talked about this in our dry run that it fit well with you. So this is from Wendy Marvin, who owns a roofing company here in Clark County. And she asked, our business isn't essential, yet we remain working through the loophole of if a dwelling can be damaged without your work, you're approved. So how do we market? No one wants scrutiny right now. How do we advertise but avoid pissing off the nitpickers? What do we do? So when we have somebody like that who is kind of a loophole, they're afraid of this scrutiny that might be coming if they choose to advertise. So how do we help them?
I think a lot of that comes down to messaging, and when you're writing that messaging, really coming from an honest, good place. Because it is true that if someone doesn't update their roof now, in 3 weeks from now, in 2 months from now, it might be too late. And things like that, I think it's really okay to be honest and clear about that. Just say, we are operational for those who need it, for those that were already planning to do this thing to their house, because if they don't, other things might happen. That's all okay to say. It really is okay to be honest and direct. And I would just encourage you to come from a really good place when you write that. One thing that a few of us panelists have noticed is that it's really easy to tell when companies are trying to take advantage of the pandemic and the current situation versus companies that are trying to do the right thing. And it's just very, very apparent in the energy, in the copy, in the words used. So I would just say, be as transparent and honest as possible.
Yeah, I'll add just one quick piece to that is get another set of eyeballs on that before you post it. And someone that's going to be honest with you, whether it's video content or copywriting or an image, someone you trust that's going to say, oh man, you're coming off like a jerk, or perfect, that's great, love the voice, get another set of eyeballs.
I also, sorry to jump in, but I also think it's a good opportunity to just ask your customers. I tell this to my email customers all the time, that we have such good direct channels between consumers and brands. Like, make a post on your Facebook page that says, what do you guys want to see from us right now? Like, we're in a weird position. Like Devin said, be transparent. Hey, we're still in business. We're not trying to like be creepy or take advantage of people, but we're trying to pay our bills and people need roofs. What would you guys like to see from us? I mean, being human at this time is so much more valuable than like gimmicks. And since we are all very aware of which things are designed to take advantage of people and which things are sincere, nothing is more sincere than straight up asking for feedback and then running with it. I think people think that's kind of admitting that you don't know what you're doing. None of us know. This has never happened before. So like, why are you trying to pretend that you're some like COVID expert when it comes to You're not. No one knows. Ask your customers. Like, those are the people paying your bills. It's a two-way relationship. Ask them. Ask them what do they want to see from you, and then go that direction. You know, asking a trusted friend is great, but your trusted friend probably isn't buying a new roof right now. So like, ask some of your roofing customers in this unprecedented situation. Bum, bum, bum. What do you want to do?
And whatever you do, just don't say unprecedented in your ad copy. Just stay away from that. You'll be good.
Yeah.
I had a couple of things that popped up when that question was asked. And the first one was feel the fear and do it anyway. You know, like if you're taking the advice that's happening right here and you are authentic to what's going on and you really want to show up and be of service, that will come through in the messaging. You can we are great future trippers. We can make up the worst case scenario for everything. But one of the things that I'm learning is that we can actually handle the reality as it comes, right? So you put it out there. It's not perfect. Oh shit, somebody says something that you don't like and you know how to handle that. You can call that person. You can respond to that post. You can post a different vibe. Like, we actually know really well how to handle what is given to us. We do not know how to handle the make-believe stories. And those stories shut us down so fast.
Well, it's actually impossible to handle those stories because you're not there. You know?
Yeah.
Anish says she's a future tripper too. And I think probably most of us are, because most of us who are business owners or are successful in any way in business, we're kind of controlling, you know, like we just want to control things. And so we think we can control so far in advance. But in actuality, all we need to do is kind of cut all the crap to just be honest. That honest messaging, what I'm hearing about from Devin, that honest messaging is just, it's so much more simple than anything that we would fluff up to try to not get nitpicked, you know?
Well,
yes.
I want to add to that perfectionism will also shut that down. Now is not the time to be perfect. Now is the time to be human.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to remind everyone that Lindsay did say just go back to the core of your business, what you started it to do. And that's probably the place that you're going to find the best, simplest, easiest way to communicate with your customers.
So one question that we got in the Q&A over here that I'm going to open up right now is, okay, we've talked a lot about like if we're working with a team, right? If we're working with a team, we can collaborate, we can do all these things, but what if you don't have a team? Mm-hmm. Like what if you're smaller? What if you're only a solopreneur? What kind of actions can you take? How can you solve this issue? Lindsay?
My initial thought, and one of the things that I wanted to touch on in my talk that I totally forgot about was to lean on your community. I'm part of 2 different networks. There's a principals roundtable, which is all agency owners that I'm part of. And then there's also another organization that's the Women's Presidents Organization, and it's all female business owners. And there's scaling, right? So there's me, teeny tiny, and then there's them that they go up to, I think the largest are billion-dollar corporations are part of this group, which is nuts to me. And they're all willing to share their information. I love how TAG is set up and that there's this cross-pollination of good ideas. Reach out to your network and don't be afraid to show up as yourself with that vulnerability of oh my God, I'm absolutely whateverified. Can you help me? What are you doing?
Whateverified is actually a technical term in most psychology handbooks. So
welcome for that.
I'm clinically whateverified. It's horrible.
Oh, exactly. Okay, so here's one question that's really specific and directive that I want to see if I can get some feedback on. It came from Kendall during the registration. It says, when it is time to open things back up again, how do we help people feel safe to come to our businesses in person? What can we do to help people feel safe when they start coming back?
Be safe. First, don't just lie and say everything's perfect and we've cracked the code. That's not going to work.
Yeah, I feel like we have some industry leaders right now. I feel like New Seasons is doing it.
Yeah.
You stand 6 feet apart from people. You wear a friggin' mask. You wear gloves. You don't touch a whole bunch of stuff and put it back.
You don't bring your whole family on a field trip. I think it depends on what type of business. I know restaurants for sure are going to struggle with that. I've seen reports of in Georgia, they're reopening things. And so they've got every other table marked off. I do think that's a good opportunity and a necessary one to send that email or push or SMS or whatever your communication method is that says, here are the measures we've taken. We don't necessarily need that right now from every business, but that's the perfect time. That's when I would expect it. That's when it would be relevant. Send that email, send that notification that says, I know you're scared. We're scared too. Here's what we've done. Here's what that's based on. Someone in the chat said leverage public health information. That's totally true. Say, based on this public health information, these are the processes we've implemented. These seem to mitigate the risk. And what I've seen from people locally is hey, we're going to reopen to the public, a few people at a time. However, we're not cutting back on any of the other things we implemented, like curbside delivery or online ordering or special deliveries, things of that nature. I think a lot of this stuff is going to have to be just a part of the permanent landscape from here on out. And I've also seen from a lot of people saying, that they have disabilities. And a lot of this is making their lives easier, like this curbside delivery and things like that. They're saying, I hope it doesn't go back to normal because this has given me so much more like freedom and access to things that everyone else has access to. So I definitely think like, yeah, publish the things that you're going to be doing to make people feel safe. And don't forget that you have a whole audience who may have been shut out of the conversation before that you've kind of opened up new pathways for.
As a video person, I think it's an opportunity as well to show people what you've done. That puts people's fear at ease. If you can anticipate problems and conflict and head that conflict off in your video, even just a very simple thing. Here's what we've done. This is what it looks like now when you come to our restaurant, and you walk people through. It takes the thing again that what we talked about earlier, that in our own minds we've got fear and it becomes nebulous, and it can go all sorts of ways. People might have that same feeling when things reopen, and to show them, hey, we actually have solved these problems. Let me show you how. When you come in, it will now look like this. When you go sit at a table, it will now look like this. We want you to come in and feel safe. Let us know if you have questions or concerns. I think just literally showing people as well is a good opportunity.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm an Airbnb host, and one of the things that they rolled out is a checklist, for when people are going to come back into your spaces, how can you reassure your guests on what they need from you? And so I found that to be tremendously helpful. Like, it's all no-brainer stuff, but to have a checklist nonetheless, like what if I was too traumatized and I couldn't pull that forward? What if I'm not thinking to talk about with my guests? Like that is a definite, a how-to of how to do things is also really helpful.
It's funny. It's very basic relationship advice, and I don't mean like love relation. I mean, I guess that in that too, but like any interpersonal relationships, Brittany Voy then mentioned, it's just managing expectations, right? So Kendall clarified just a little bit in the Q&A that she works in alternative healthcare. And so they are, they've got all of the procedures in place and they're being very safe. So really, I think, Jamie, your answer of managing expectations by showing people that might mean doing a Facebook Live. It might mean creating a video. It might mean sending out an email that says, here's what you can expect now. Because you don't have to convince anybody, right? You just have to tell them what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just don't want to be surprised when I go into somewhere, right? That's kind of it. If I know what I'm getting into, or I know what it looks like, it takes away some of the fear. And I just don't want to show up somewhere and go, oh, didn't know that I had to go through this other door today, and now I feel weird. And now I'm thinking about other things, and also now I don't trust you, and so I'm looking for ways to find fault in what you're doing.
From what I'm seeing a little bit, the times I've gone shopping during this, and there's a whole spectrum of responses. And so I'm hearing a lot about the people who are afraid, but I think there's also a social contract aspect, which goes to that new season thing in terms of, we're going to do this. We got you on this. We're managing this. Now, here's what we need you to do. And we're expecting everybody to do that as well. And we'll hold you accountable if you aren't, because we're making sure everybody's really safe. And I do think Jamie hit the nail on the head. He's a video guy. Didn't think about video. That's probably the best way to do it. Have a quick Facebook video of somebody cleaning and show the process you go through on a table, and show what you might expect when waiting in line for the new seasons. And maybe even, I went into Trader Joe's the other day, and when I get in, the manager came up to me and she said, how long was the wait? People are just asking me. I'm curious. Right? And I said, it wasn't too bad. It was about 15 minutes, right? And a couple of people were standing a little too close, but I'm okay, right? And so she was then able to use that to sort of communicate out to other people what was going on when they called.
I would also say be really open to feedback when you do open up. You're going to be flying by the seat of your pants and probably making changes every single day. So you're going to want to get the perspective of your customers, but you also don't have to take every bit of feedback that comes in. People are going to have their own ideas about why what you're doing is wrong and sucks and blah, 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 blah. Like, they can have that perspective, but you just need to be safe and use proper guidelines to to help navigate that.
Yeah, it probably won't be relevant for a medical setting, but I mean, I think business owners should probably prepare themselves for not having the exact same customer base that they did before. Like you said, medical, that's not going to make a difference. But I mean, if you're a restaurant, you're probably going to have to come to grips with the fact that some people are not going to feel safe yet. And again, like, we're not trying to convince them. You're just saying the thing that you're doing. And some people are going to choose not to take your word for it, just like you're going to choose not to take their feedback. And it's okay. It doesn't mean your business is crappy or like you should close up shop. Just, stuff is different now. So be prepped that things are going to be changing.
Yeah, one of the things, I don't know what you just said that triggered this, but people are also looking to blame anybody they can, because that's one of the grief stages, so to not be surprised when people are struggling like that and you're getting different kinds of feedback, like it's coming out of literally nowhere. So I just hold that huge amount of compassion for people and being as understanding as you can of like, I hear how hard this is.
It's that empathy that we were talking about in section 2, because what it is it's not taking things personally, right? If we can be empathetic enough to understand that they're acting out of a place of fear, then we don't have to absorb that, Devin, like you said. We don't have to absorb it. We can take it as data, but not take it personally. And I can tell you, managing our agency manages about 50 social media accounts right now, and the influx in negativity is huge. Okay. Some of it is bots, and some of it is just real scared people. In real life, we can't hide people's comments like we can on social media sometimes, but like, at least we don't have to absorb them. Okay, so I have a couple questions here on the registration that I want to go to too. There might not be perfect answers for them, but let's see what we can do. So what are some meaningful ways to connect with my audience while we are shut down? So if there is a company who literally is not serving their clients right now, they're totally shut down, how can they meaningfully connect with their customers during this time?
I'm going to go total tangent sidebar. Shocking. I know. But I was watching Storm Large last night on she calls it her bedroom series. And she looped in a guy who's a bartender and a drag queen. Both of those industries completely shut down. And he has taken everything online to just entertain and be a part of, right? So a lot of his customers have just started following him, and she was incredible. So, I mean, I feel like that is such obviously not my business, and I don't know what businesses we have here, but I feel like that's a way to do it, is again, coming back to authenticity. Like, how can you show up as yourself, offering I heard something earlier about,
or as someone else in drag, either way.
Oh, right. I mean, fine. But like the cooking lessons or the hot tips on the knives. And like, there were some really cool things that were being mentioned earlier, to just show up as an expert.
A few cool things that I've seen. Pok Pok is a really popular Thai restaurant here in Portland. And the owner has been doing make stuff at home videos for all of his most popular things. And while that's common, we've seen a lot of people do that. What I love about what he is doing is in his recipes, there's a lot of crazy ingredients that you have to buy from crazy Thai supermarkets and stuff like that. But he has been modifying them for things that you'd find in a normal grocery store. And that has been one way that he can stay connected with his customers, but also showing that he's very, very aware of the current situation, that you might not be able to get these super weird soba noodles straight from Thailand right now. You might only be able to get top ramen packets. So here's what you can do with stuff like that. And he's adding some personal flair in there, which I think is important to just show how it's been good to see how he's been keeping himself occupied and kind of showing a little slice of his life, I guess, which is, just entertainment, and it makes people feel connected.
I think the overall point is that it's all happening digitally, right? So it's like, if there's some way that you can sell it online, it's got to be on your website. Like, don't wait to do that. If it's a thought leadership piece, you need to start blogging. If it's, whatever that you've done in person, face to face in the past, if there's any way to, again, pivot that to a digital platform, like you need to do it, last week or whatever. So digital is what we're relying on now for social entertainment, commerce, transaction, everything now. So it's all there.
Yeah, I really liked what Lindsay had to say about your expertise. I mean, you're in business because you're an expert in something, and it's okay to share that. I think I would just encourage people to make sure that if you're sharing the expertise, connect it to the situation that people are finding themselves in, and make sure that it does. And if not, just don't do it. Just pause for now or find a different way to do that. But you can cook, if you're a restaurant, was it Matt that mentioned grocery and showing how to do cocktails? I think showing your expertise is a great way to stay connected to people, especially if it's legitimately helpful, or lighthearted, right? Just keep it light. Set up a camera, super easy to do. The beautiful thing, which perhaps works against me currently, is that it doesn't matter if your video looks amazing right now.
It doesn't.
Everybody accepts it.
Totally.
They all know, and it's okay. So just take advantage of that. People don't care if the light's a little bad. Show your thing. Be fun. Have an expertise in something. Do it. Post it. Move on. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
I've seen. Oh, you go.
Sorry, I was just going to say it's a good opportunity to be sincere, be human. I mean, I think there's even a chance where if you haven't traditionally done video and you like come out during this time with this like perfectly slick edited video, you're going to look out of touch. Like, what the hell are you doing making this fancy video? People are dying. Like, knock it off. Get your cell phone. Like, what are you doing? So I think it's it's super crappy to like try to put silver linings on the bad thing, yada, yada. That's what we're here to do though. So I think, using this opportunity to connect with your customers on a level that is much more human than normal is like, this is the time to do it. And so trying to pull out all the stops is not going to win you any favors. And in fact, look extra out of touch, which is not what anyone wants to do right now. Sorry, go for it, Simeon.
I mean, I was going to say the things that I've enjoyed are like real estate brokers who are doing cooking videos and how they make pizza. They're showing me how they're living their life during this time so that I'm paying attention to them and I'm enjoying it. I mean, it's like, oh, that's a cool way to make a pizza. I've never thought about that. And that's kind of strange that you know how to do that. Okay. And, just enjoying people's hobbies and skills that I never knew they had, that has nothing to do with their normal business, but now connecting to them on a whole new level of just, the humanity level. And I mean, those are the things that I'm like diving into and soaking them all up.
One of the things that my HR rep said that I think is so wise right now is that this whole situation has like brought family back into business a bit more because we're all doing our work from home again. And I say again, I don't know when the last time we were doing this as a culture. I don't know the answers, but
It's unprecedented.
It is. I know. But there are children, there are dogs, there are mothers, there are grandmothers chilling in our Zoom calls. I have my Monday marketing meeting every Monday, and now my mom thinks she's part of it. Like she makes an appearance every Monday. I'm afraid when we go back that she's going to feel left out, like she's not part of the team anymore. But isn't it interesting how we are all connecting so much more on a human level? Like you're saying, you're learning pizza recipes from your real estate agent, and that's a good thing.
I happen to just get an email. The subject line is, Jeremy, we've missed you. Let's catch up. And it's from Samsung. So there's a way
to human level.
Yeah, thanks for connecting with me on a human level, Samsung. There's a way to like try to do this that's really wrong as well. So I'll just point that out.
Yeah, if they were my customer for deliverability consulting, I would have told them to put the kibosh on that one.
It is a super interesting point, though, Jeremy. I mean, because small businesses, I think, have a distinct advantage in that space right now. right? The big companies they already kind of look and feel impersonal, and a small business doesn't. So you can do things like make pizza or show where you're going for a walk, or here's the game that I'm playing, or give some expertise. And I think you should take advantage of that, particularly if you're a small business now. People completely accept that from you, and it feels personal.
Agree. I mean, especially while we're hearing about bigger companies doing layoffs and things, I don't want to get some like superhuman email from some restaurant that just laid off 3,000 people. I'm like, not having it. No, thank you. You're not human to me right now. Tough times for everyone, but.
And I'll just speak personally for a second. This is anecdote, not data, but for all the businesses near me, I really would love to support them if I can, right? The clothing boutiques and things like that we go into. Maybe I don't even know the people's names, but I know their face and kind of have a sense for who they are. So having some sort of outlet about that and saying, hey, here's what's going on. Yeah, even maybe saying you're struggling a little bit or when you're going to open a little bit, having that human connection, even if it's not all positive, I think is really helpful. And I think there's going to be room here soon for almost some like nonprofit type marketing at a very personal level for smaller businesses where it's about coming back together. We often try to inject more emotion into our clients' marketing work, and it's not always possible for some of these software companies and things like that. But it's not only possible, but necessary as the businesses get smaller and smaller and smaller, more personal.
And I mean, if a business, your own business, is not particularly relevant or able to be humanized, it's a good chance to maybe highlight, showcase some other local businesses that like a lot of people in Vancouver have been doing that. Hey, we're not open, but today we're going to showcase this company. Why don't you go buy a sandwich from them? And we can't wait to see you when we can make sandwiches again. And that as a consumer, it makes me feel so good about them as a company because they're not like never buy a sandwich somewhere else. They know that you want other sandwiches sometimes. They know that we all live in a community, and it makes me want to eat their sandwiches even more because they're so generous about what is going on in the world. Competition is absolutely still a thing, but if you're not able to physically sell things, there's no skin off your back for saying how good another company is, and it just makes both of you look better in the long run.
And when go ahead.
Sorry, there's a comment in the chat from Don that said, when we order delivery now, we call it supporting the local economy. It's like, it feels like I'm contributing to a nonprofit when I go pick up my pizza on a Friday night, And I tip extra big because my personal income hasn't been changed by this yet. So I want to like be generous in that way. So it feels like almost like a donation to go and do that.
Brittany over in the comment section, she's from the Chehalis Centralia area, and she said they've used this Choose Local First campaign, and it's almost become a team sport for the restaurants, like instead of it being competitive in any way, it's a team sport to try to amplify that message more than anything else, which I think is really cool. Allison, I have a question specific to you, and I want to just remind the 51 attendees or so that I would love to have some more questions in the Q&A section if you have them. So this is your chance to ask what you need to do. Okay. If you have specific questions about what you need to do with your marketing, with your business, we're going to answer everything, and you're going to feel so confident walking away from this. But you have to ask the question. Okay. So Allison, for you specifically, first of all the panelists, raise your hand if you've gotten at least 20 emails that say like COVID-19 update from like every business you've ever gone to. Okay.
Only 20?
At least. So Allison, when is the right time to send an email that is an update on this? Do you even have to send it as a COVID-19 update? How do we use email to communicate in a way that isn't annoying with our customers?
I mean, it definitely depends on what you've been doing before. There's not going to be a one-size-fits-all answer. So much of your email reputation is based on what you've already done. It's like a credit score. So it's not like, oh, I just applied for a new card and now I have a bad rating. Like, you have been building that all along. So I don't want to steer anyone wrong. The big tips that I like to drive home to people are stay relevant. Don't send mail that you don't have a reason to send. Send what is expected by your customers, and don't come up with stuff just to be like, whoop, better send an email. I haven't done it in a while. Because that's not necessary. As you just said, like all of us are getting a really good lesson in what not to do right now. So I encourage senders, go through your personal inbox, take a look at what people have done and how it made you feel, and learn from that. Because I personally, I mentioned this in our meeting yesterday, which other people were not there for, so I can repeat myself. We don't really need an email saying how well you're cleaning if that's nothing to do with what I shop with you. Like the homebrew shop where my husband buys his beer supplies, I don't care that they're sanitizing every half hour. Like that has nothing to do with me. It doesn't affect whether I'm going to shop there or not. There's no need to send that email. So I would say think twice if you're like, I just need to come up with something to put it out there, because every email you send can have a negative impact on your sending reputation. If you're sending to contacts who haven't interacted with you in a long time, that can negatively impact your ability to reach the inbox. If you're sending to people and it's something super not aligned with what you normally send and they hit the "this is spam" button, that has a negative impact on your reputation. So you wouldn't want to send something that generates a bunch of complaints and then have that negative impact if it's like super not anything that you have to send. So I would just be smart about it. I know that's not the advice people want. I'm not going to be able to say like May 5th is the day, send the email. You should send the email when you have something relevant to say, and it should go to the people who are interested in hearing it. I don't think now is the time to be like, hey, I dug up my old database from 2015. Let's blast them all. No one wants that from you, as we can all attest to. So I would keep it relevant and focused on the customers, subscribers who are like your core engaged subscribers before you get too fancy or experimental.
Thank you. I think that's really relevant advice. Okay, so one thing that I posed to, I can't remember if it was the first or the second panel that I would love to pose to you all too, is what is the single most important thing I can do to help my business right now? Okay, so in the moment that we are in right now, if I could only focus on one thing, what would be the one thing that you would tell me to focus on to better my business and my standing as we're coming out of this situation?
I'll go ahead and go first. I would, I'm in a little bit of a different industry than some of you guys, so my advice is going to be a little bit different, but we can't be, what do we say, future trippers. We can't be thinking like 20 years in advance, but I definitely think getting in your mind how you're going to be dealing with business over the long term when this appears to be something that is not going away anytime soon. We keep hearing like there probably won't be a return to normal. So I think telling yourself, okay, well, when business gets back to normal is a mistake. I think people should right now be thinking of what have we done to pivot in this time and how can we make that sustainable over the long term? Next.
I can jump onto that. From a data standpoint, I would encourage everyone to dig into your data and figure out whether it's going to be most efficient for you to either acquire new customers or retarget to old customers. For most businesses right now, acquiring new customers is going to be much more expensive than it has been before. So probably looking to old customers, lookalike lists, things like that is going to be a lot easier. And those people are going to be a lot easier to communicate with and to sell to in a, good, authentic way. But that might not be the case. Looking at things like lifetime value is going to be your best place to just understand where your audience is, how they've changed over the last month or two, and what is going to be your best thing to focus on. Because if you can only focus on one thing, that one thing should be the thing that's going to get you the most out of your efforts.
I saw you air clap over there, Flint. You like that idea?
It was great.
Are you doing something similar?
Yeah, and I also, I work at a digital company, so we're going to be thinking digitally. I think most people here, some aspect or all of their job is related to that as well. There's no one advice that's going to work for everybody, But if you've not started moving towards digital, it seems like the world's going to be this way in the short term, and there's probably going to be implications long term. So, it's the change from talking one-to-one or one-to-few to one-to-many. So instead of having a conversation with one client, work with Simeon or Jamie and make a video, right? And now you're talking to 100 or 1,000 or whatever number of those people might be, and you're just more efficient that way. And I think people are always going to be more comfortable if there's something wrong, like we have right now. If it looks like you are legitimate digitally, they're going to be more comfortable with you in person no matter what. So it's one of those things I think is going to have a long-term benefit, but clearly must happen right now. We're seeing restaurants scramble to do this. There's a restaurant, we tried to make an order last week, and literally from a Thursday night to a Friday, they added online ordering. So they were clearly hustling to do this, but it was really not well put together yet. So as I said, we kind of feel like, you're donating a bit when you do that. So, we were clearly willing to call them up and figure it out and do whatever. And even hopefully this didn't come across too poorly, give them a tiny bit of advice for what they might be able to do better.
Hey, know what you know.
Yeah. And definitely working in digital has ruined this for me because I look at everybody's digital experiences, how it could be better. But if you're missing the basic stuff digitally, putting those fundamental pieces in place, which has gotten a lot easier, is just a must do right now.
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing that I would say is do whatever you can do to stay in business, because if you can survive through this, you will be able to hire people back and continue to grow again. But survival is the number one thing. Like, do what it takes. And only you know that.
Yeah, I have a very narrow set of expertise, so I can answer this from just a very narrow viewpoint. But I think when people are moving to, particularly in video or front-facing communication that's new to them, it's going to feel off at first, and you have to keep at it, right? It's like developing a new skill. So don't give up right away. If the first video, which, by the way, the first video that you do almost always is going to be terrible, that's okay. Just keep going. Do the next one. The next one's going to get more comfortable. Be honest, evaluate, and exercise that muscle, right? It's like when you start to work out after not working out for a really long time, you feel awful, but you've got to keep going until it gets to be natural. So I would just tell you to keep going. If you have to try new things and they don't feel right, just keep pushing forward.
One thing that I want to bring out that somebody asked, somehow I think I accidentally pushed answered, but somebody asked about restaurants specifically. Okay, so they asked about strategies for connecting with and marketing the restaurant and bar right now. Okay, so I have one strategy that I want to talk about, and if some of you can prepare some ideas and strategies while I'm talking about it, that would be great. So what I've been doing with the couple of restaurants that I work with is I've been focusing heavily on Instagram. Instagram is like the wonderland of social media platforms, in my opinion. Like, everyone there is inspiring and happy or bots. Like, that's the three categories of people on Instagram. On Facebook, we've got complainers, we've got arguers. Did you just raise your hand that you're a complainer, Allison?
And an arguer.
But on Instagram, there's just this really interesting culture on Instagram where people are wanting to be inspired and share inspirational and beautiful content, and they're in a better mood. I don't know why. So what I've been doing for those restaurants is whatever location that they are in. I know I mentioned location tags before, but as the restaurant, I will go through and in the close-knit, like a few mile radius from where the restaurant is located, I will be looking at people's posts in that area and comment legitimate comments on their posts, right? They show the trail run that they got through this morning. Wow, that looks like that was a pretty hard run. How did it go for you? And just ask the question. And they might respond back saying, you know what, it was really great, and now I think I need to carbo load. I should get some of your pizza, And did I have to say that? No, I didn't. They're the ones that ended up bringing the product into the mix. All I'm doing is showing up as the brand in the community supporting the people who are our customers already. And really, that's all that I have to do. Now, there are some extra functions that Instagram has added. Like on Instagram now, you can have a little sticker that you can add that says like to-go orders, and you can put your Grubhub link right into that to-go orders sticker, so that people can click straight through your Instagram story to your online ordering. So that's another thing. But the biggest thing is outreach on Instagram. Outreach towards your local community. If they're sharing pictures of your food, you're sharing them back. You're thanking them. You're asking them how their meal was. So that's some of the strategies that I've been using with social media. What about any other of you working with restaurants or bars?
Well, my brother has a restaurant in San Francisco, and we talked about this the other day, but we've been talking strategy of how to put his food into his customers' hands. And that's what he's been doing since day one, since this entire thing. He started giving away his sourdough starters to everyone, which is a more hands-on thing, which I wouldn't suggest right now. But, those people now is like, okay, so this is how you make it. This is how we're doing. Share your pictures. Start filming different ways with your chefs. Start trying to, you have a chef because they're better than the average person. Otherwise, the average person would be only cooking at home. But show them how to make some of these things. They're going to make it, probably fail, show off, and hopefully, when we all open again and get to eat at restaurants and taste that delicious food, your loyal customers will come back because they're like, oh my gosh, I've been making this forever. Like, I need to eat the real thing now. But that's just one of the ways that him and I have been talking, and unfortunately I can't help him because he's in San Francisco and I'm here. But, I like that idea.
Before we move to the next person, Noir asked if the people who we were commenting on Instagram, if they were followers of the restaurant already. And the answer is no, they're not followers. You're using like the discover function on Instagram to search for location tags. So basically the little, what is it? It's not a microscope. It's a
magnifying glass.
Thank you. A magnifying glass icon. You click that, you get into the discover function. You can type in the city that you're located in and hit location tags, and it'll show you all the posts that people have made within a certain radius. So it's really stalkerish, but like, okay, like you have access to that data, so you can use it. And then you're just commenting on those people's content. You don't know for sure that they're a customer of yours at all, but if they're within that radius, they likely at least know your brand exists. Mm-hmm. And so you're just being present in their life and commenting on it, on their content.
Or they don't know you exist and you just got a new one. So win-win.
Exactly. But you're not going on there and saying, hey, what are you having for dinner tonight? Order our pizza.
I was shocked looking at restaurants how many just didn't say whether they're open, what their hours are, how to order, right? And so you're almost at the next level of what you can do with social, but at the most basic level, if you don't have, even if you posted that 2 weeks ago, you might need to keep posting it or pin it or whatever else you're doing where it can be found. And we're talking about 3 sentences, right? I looked through 8 sites trying to figure out who was open when we were ordering that day I was mentioning, and just couldn't figure out for sure. We were really wanting to do it, so we called, but it wouldn't have taken very long for them to just sort those few things and really meet people where they are.
Yeah, if you're gonna put it on a sign on your door outside, go ahead and put it on your Facebook page and your website. Like, I shouldn't have to drive to your building to find out I can't give you my money. It doesn't make me want to give you more of it later.
Okay, let's see. Somebody said social media is stalkerish by nature, so that works really well. And Anish mentioned that if you have no online presence, you're doing your customers a disservice. So let's say that I am a business that has no online presence right now. What is a priority for me? What would be a first priority for me to be able to properly connect with my customers at this time?
I'm sure these pros can answer better than me, but as a non-marketing person, Facebook is free, right? Like, why do you not have I hate when there's a local place, brand new, I drive by, I'm like, oh, I've never heard of that place before. And I get on Facebook and they're nowhere to be found. And there's nothing on the building. And it's just like this huge mystery. And I'm a freak. I want to be there on day one to like see what's going on. And so it's like, why am I fighting for the opportunity to like go patronize your business? I don't get it.
Google My Business also has all the information that any business would need. And I would also like to point out it takes 10 minutes to create a really crappy Squarespace website, which is better than no Squarespace website.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Devin, can I ask you a Google My Business question?
Sure, I can try to answer.
So last time we've helped some people set that up. They were doing a physical mail to the location to prove that you were there. Do you know if they've come up with any workarounds for that? Because that would be the simplest thing to do. You're right.
I'm fairly certain that's still the process. They mail you, just to verify that it's you, they just mail you a little postcard with a code on it. And then once you get that, you type that in and then you're good to go. It takes like 5 days or whatever to come in the mail. So you would still have to, I don't know, just go check your physical location's mail or go to the post office or something like that.
And for anyone who doesn't know what smaller business is or who has not created one of these yet, Google My Business is how you get your pin on the map when people are searching for things. It also, a lot of people don't have great websites, and I think part of the reason Google My Business exists is to give you the basic information that some people fail to give you. So where are you? Again, all the restaurant stuff I just said. When are you open? All those kinds of things are all there, and you can find them without having to go look through a site forever to find that. But also, in addition, if you have a site and you don't have Google My Business, you're doing yourself a disservice because you may not be in those map results, which is where a lot of people are searching now. So it's a free thing. It's an easy thing. You can just figure out that mail piece right now. And you can also go in there. You may not be complete. So just adding a phone number and some other basic stuff would be really helpful in the short term if you don't have it already.
And they do have COVID specific little points of data right now. So you can write our normal business hours are this, but COVID hours are yada, yada, yada. And that when you go into your profile, Google should prompt you for all of that stuff. So you should be able to just add it in and it should be pretty easy.
Somebody just commented that you can get mail forwarded to your home from Google by this. So that seems really common sense because I don't know if you want to have to go check your mail to finalize that.
Good to know.
I know that sometimes too, like if it's never been claimed before, it'll allow you to verify it based on a phone number. And at least it will publish the content right away. And then it won't be listed as like verified until after you've done the PIN number. But if you've never made one before, at least it will be published when you get right in there. So that's helpful too. And you can also on Google My Business, you can also do posts. Okay, so you can, have any of you done Google My Business posts before? So you can create posts and they're like social media posts, but they expire after 7 days. So it's like a very timely update that you're giving out. And the only time anybody would ever see it is if they were searching for your brand name and your Google business listing came up, then your posts are at the bottom of that. So we've been doing that for a lot of our clients right now too, just to really, really double down on where we're keeping people informed. Another thing that we've been doing too, just as a thought, is like we've updated almost everybody's Instagram bio to include their most recent information. Somebody talked about pinned posts already on Facebook, but on Instagram, you can't do pinned posts. So updating your bio is the best way to get people that information very quickly. Or even an Instagram story highlight. Creating a story highlight can give you that longer form dialogue if it's specific to whatever the event is that you're talking about right now.
This is a little bit more advanced for people that do have a web presence, but Google Optimize also has a COVID specific banner that you can put on your website. So if you have that, you have a website and you have Google Optimize installed, you don't need to go to a developer or anything to get those little COVID banners on your homepage. You can just populate that with Optimize.
One thing I think we should bring back to the surface too that Adrian mentioned in the previous session was about just kind of pointing all of your there's so many different tools, right? There's so many different platforms. It can be really overwhelming when you say, oh yeah, update your Google Optimize, Google My Business website, all your social media platforms. And that's when your brain just kind of like seizes up and you just go, I give up, you know? So I thought Adrian's advice was really good. Like if you're mostly active on your Facebook page, then on your website, say, you know, hey, we're still open. Check out our Facebook page for updates. On your Instagram, say check out, you know, just direct all the traffic to one place so that you can just like just focus on, you know, getting the message out in the most efficient way possible. And you don't have to be an expert in every single platform that's out there because that could be super overwhelming.
Okay, there's a question from Annie here that I want to answer. She says, how are you dealing with working from home distractions? I mean, that's a whole nother set of problems that we have not hit on is, you know, okay, so we're running our businesses and a lot of us are doing it from home, perhaps for the first time. So how are you dealing with distractions? What's working from you? What's working for you as you're working from home?
I work from home all the time, so I'm probably the worst person to answer this question, but I'm buying you guys some time by talking. So I hope that this is helping you.
I can talk on this. So I took my therapist friend's advice and I put together, so I have my kids every other week, and I put together literally a minute by minute schedule. So if my brain gets overwhelmed, I can look and be like, oh, it's 8 a.m. This is when we go for a walk for 1 hour. Then we will be back. Then you will sit and you will watch a show for 30 minutes. Then you will go into your Zoom call with your class. And I don't have to remember what it is, and I don't have to freak out. I can just be like, what does it say that we're doing at 12 o'clock? Okay. I also have been, I love therapy, people. My therapist is like, you need to front load your life. So I do pre-cooking. I freeze that shit. I put together meal plans for breakfast, lunch, dinner. So I'm like, oh my God, it's Monday. What are we doing for breakfast? Cottage cheese. Check. Let's go. And I don't have to like think about it, because if I have to think what's for dinner tonight, sometimes that's just too much. And then my local community gets my dollars. It's not a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, I think really putting myself literally on a schedule for everything. And then work-wise, oh my God, what does that mean when you're homeschooling children? Like it's the same thing. It's like I have a task list that I need to get done during the day, and I check in with my team, and I've got accountability. So it's, I don't know, man, I'm all about not doing things by myself.
I've been trying to not multitask as much as possible. I don't have kids, so my life is probably much more luxurious than a lot of people's right now. But what I try not to do is multitask by doing laundry and starting dinner while I'm still finishing up work or something like that. I've been pretty regimented with my work time, and I try not to like sweep the floor real quick in between Zoom meetings or whatever, because then I just feel really spread thin when I do that.
I've been expecting less of myself.
So since I do this all the time, basically my system, and this isn't just work, my whole life, I operate on a system of rewards. I don't have like internal motivation, so I have to take that outside of myself. So I guess like the Pomodoro technique exists. I thought I invented it. I thought it was the Allison technique, where you do a bunch of work for a set period of time, and when that time is up, Pomodoro, you're supposed to take a break. For me, I get a reward. So that reward could be a trip to go get a coffee. I could be sometimes the reward is like vacuuming, which is so boring, but like going for a walk or having a snack or any of those things that like help keep you sane and are small self-care rituals. I just feel like that keeps me motivated, and because I could sit here all day from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. just head down emailing my customers or whatever. So making myself get up and for something fun to do makes it more worthwhile, because that like let's get up and stretch. I'm like, I don't need to stretch. Who cares? Muscles are lame. But if it's like, let's go outside, I'm like, oh, okay, I can stretch my muscles for that. It's worth it. I can stop working. So I highly recommend reward system. If you have to get yourself a sticker chart, totally valid. That's an option as well. But I definitely think getting outside if you can. I know I have some fear-mongering Facebook friends who are like, I can't believe police state, we can't go outside. And I'm like, no, you can go. I've been out there every day. It's totally fine. I recommend it because sometimes it's good to get outside of your head and outside of the internet and be like, oh, birds are still here. Perfect. Good news.
Yeah, I like finding things that are just creative. So I'll work a couple hours doing boring projects that are stuck in safe places, key to having a place that's safe, that sometimes has a lock on the door that nobody else has a key to. Then just finding space to do creative projects and whatever. I mean, for me, video, like I have tons of video that I have projects from years past, so I'm just working through those right now, and that helps me get through the days of just not being able to go to my coffee shop. Brian, and just have that social outlet, because that's really right. That's where like usually my work happens, is in spaces with other people, and so being only with my kids and my wife all day long is normal. But at the same time, I don't do that normally. I usually go and have breaks at the coffee shop. So creativity, that's my new thing.
Yes.
I found it helpful to have conversations with my wife and my children that don't revolve around me or my business. And like helping to just listen or solve somebody else's problem just gets me out of my own world, that I can get really locked into and thinking that everything is about me, but it's not. So I find it helpful to make sure that every day I'm asking, oh, how was your day at work? Or what was school like today? What kinds of things did you learn? Or that seems hard for you. Maybe we should go for a drive or whatever. Anything that gets me out of my own space has been real helpful.
Aaron Lynch says he's using a D20 dice to RPG his way through COVID. Yes.
Aren't we all?
Isn't that what's happening?
I would say the other thing that I'm allowing myself is I'm giving myself a lot of permission slips to not be perfect right now. Like,
yes.
Oh my God, people, I'm so glad that you can't see around that corner, because I literally have dishes from Saturday. They're wiped down. They are stacked very nicely, but I have not looked at those. I'm like, Matt, I don't have time for that. Do not have it. And I'm like allowing that to be okay. I am permitting that. So
someone in the comments mentioned that they kind of just get over making decisions for the day. So when the time comes to decide what we're getting for takeout, someone else just needs to decide, because I have already made a bajillion decisions throughout the day and I just can't anymore. So I think that's really important too, is just setting a time for yourself where you're just like, I'm done thinking about anything today. Like, you decide what we watch, what we eat for dinner. I don't care.
Yeah, the other thing that people are talking a lot about right now is Zoom fatigue, like not just decision fatigue, but Zoom fatigue. And I don't know if you've read the articles, but like what's making us so tired is that we cannot smell each other and we cannot see each other's bodies moving.
I love it. I love not smelling you guys. It's great.
You're welcome. But I mean, just all those like teeny tiny things exhaust us mentally. So just noting that it's so weird. It's so weird right now.
I only have one thing. I don't think I'm handling this well at all. So this is my only good piece of advice. Everything else is going to be bad. But speaking of Zoom fatigue and just general, I did train my child. And so when we're having a Zoom meeting, I'm not as worried about being quite as professional. So he can come in during the call, and as long as he's quiet, we can do like a little hug or a high five or something. And it's just a really nice grounding moment. And I think for all of our clients anyway, and our internal team for sure, nobody's upset at that right now. I think everybody understands. Yeah. And when we first started, we were giving a lot of opening statements about, well, just, you might hear some noises and blah, 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 right? All this kind of stuff. And I think now everyone's just used to it. And if anything, I'd rather know that they're going through the same thing that I am. And so relaxing them a little bit has helped quite a bit.
I really love Allison what you said about the birds are still birds. Is that what you said?
They're still there. They're still there.
And I think it was Val in the comments said, and flowers are still flowering. And something Brittany said earlier in one of the earlier sessions is one of the things she likes to do is go through a bit of a thought experiment. What if everything she was trying right now failed? What would happen? You know? So like going down the worst case scenario and saying, okay, so if everything happened that was bad, where would I be? And then you can go, okay, so what about that? You know? Personally, I've been sleeping in a tent in my backyard for the last couple days. My kids thought it was fun, but then when they went back to their dads, I just stayed sleeping out there. And like really waking up to the birds and the light coming through the tent has made a significant impact on my own well-being when I'm waking up. So I don't know. I think there's something to that bird statement.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're lucky. I mean, I feel like most of the people here are local, right? We're so lucky to live somewhere so beautiful, not to get like super cornballed out. But when I'm in a really bad mood, I just go for a drive. I go up 5 until I like feel like stopping, and then I take the way home that's off the highway, and like it's just so beautiful. You can see the river and the mountains and the trees, and for half an hour, I'm not thinking of like any of this crap. I'm just like, oh, it's the world and it's going to be okay. Whatever happens to me, it's like super inconsequential. We need that break just to like stop thinking about all this stuff because it is super stressful. And there is probably no end in sight that we know of that's concrete right now. And so, instead of that future tripping where we're just freaking out all the time about what's going to happen. When I was growing up, my dad always gave me this corny advice, but I find it helpful, which is you don't have to do it all at once. You just have to do today. And so today we get through today and tomorrow we worry about tomorrow. But if we sit here and say like, this is going to be forever and every month is going to get worse, like who are you helping? No one. Go outside.
I don't think it's a coincidence or chance that we're spending half of this time talking about our own personal mental health and self-care. Because in the end, okay, we're here because it's a business conference, right? To help people, be prepared to come out the other side with their business feeling strong. But like the only way anybody is going to be able to do that is if they don't like crack in half mentally. So they have to take care of themselves. So it's like the most prescriptive advice we can give people right now is to take care of themselves. Is that true?
Put on your own mask first.
Yes.
Like on the airplane. If you're passing out while you're putting on your kid's air mask, then what? Then you got an orphan. That's no good. Not going to help. Put on your own mask. Take care of you. You come first, always.
So do you think that this third section here where we're talking about opportunity, is this crisis situation an opportunity for us to improve our own mental health, to center our own selves a little bit more?
Yes, 100%.
Or just redefine mental health. I mean, what does that mean? Like, not anxious? Too bad. Oh, well. Sorry, go ahead, Lindsay. I got it all.
I love that we're talking over each other. We're comfortable in this weird space. Lacey, one of the things that triggered when you were asking, is this what we should be doing? One of my favorite sayings of all times is when you take care of yourself, everybody gets taken care of. And it's the same as putting your mask on first, right? Like it's, we're in the weirdest time and we're totally isolated, but not one of us is doing this by ourselves. Like literally the world is in the same boat. And I find comfort in that because I know that I can literally talk to any single human that I see passing and they'll be like, I know. And it's like that's a gift, and everybody is going to have their own voice and their own experience. And we will all be able to be like, yeah, 2020, holy cow, what an insane pivot in our history. That's enough.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a defining moment, right? You go through this kind of pressure cooker experience and that's where your character's formed. So it's not a surprise that we're all kind of looking inward. Not only are we kind of like isolated from each other, so we're kind of like all we have is what we see in the mirror or what I see in my Zoom screen. But, this is everything else is stopped. My kids have no sports. All activities we didn't go anywhere for spring break. Everything just kind of came to this screeching halt, and you're just kind of left in this weird silence, right? Where you just kind of have to deal with yourself. And what we come out on the other side of this with is going to be a testament to our own personal character and who we actually were before this whole thing started. Probably is just going to be amplified as we move through it and get to the other side of it. So, or maybe it'll be transformed for the better. That would be also great, But these are those moments. These are those like defining moments for everybody personally, and then I think it was already said somewhere. Business is made up of people, right? Like businesses are not just things; it's made up of people. And so once we get the people, when you change the people, you change the business, and they're all interrelated.
Yeah,
So,
I always hated that saying, like, it's not personal, it's business. What was more personal than that? That's how I make my living. It is the most personal thing that I got going for me. So, yeah, absolutely.
I would advise anyone against feeling pressure that they need to come out of this a better person or with improved mental health or anything like that, because it might not happen. And this is a collective trauma. And if you tell yourself, I have all this extra time, I'm going to write a novel and get in the best shape of my life and be the most positive, optimistic person ever, that's only going to add on to the pressure that you're probably already feeling. So if you find an opportunity to improve things about yourself, great. But if you don't, just let whatever that's happening happen. Don't feel like you have to do any specific thing with all of this.
Agree.
Yeah, I saw somebody mention in the chat meditation, and yes, breathe is basically breathe and let your prefrontal cortex take over. Just let that.
Okay, I think I feel pretty happy. I think we're coming to a nice ending point here. Does anybody have in our last bit of panel time here, does anybody have any last minute questions, or does anybody on the panel have any last minute thoughts that they would like to share?
We are all in this together. Unprecedented times. Do a shot.
Do a shot.
Okay, well, everybody here in panel 3, I'm so grateful for the time that you were able to share with us and for the insight and vulnerability that you were able to give to the group here. This was a great way to close. I think it was funny the way that Lindsay, you presented your talk. I sometimes err on the side of high energy and fast talking, and you like kind of made me calm down a little bit just in the way that you communicated, with having, a little bit more space between your words and your thoughts, and not being afraid to be quiet for a minute in between thoughts. So I'm grateful for that. I think that put us in a nice state to kind of end here feeling a little bit more calm.
You're gonna make me cry, girl.
Well, thank you. Honestly. So why don't we get ready to close off? Panel 3, if you would like to go ahead and close off, I will just finish with our closing statements. But thank you so much for everything that you put together today. I just have a little last bit of housekeeping for the people who are finishing up here. So the sponsors, the main sponsors for our event were Gravitate, IMS Capital, WSU Vancouver, Camus Life Magazine, and then of course everybody within the TAG organization who put so much work into the event today. Aaron Lynch, Alicia, Anish, Jeremy. There's so many other names I know, and I won't be able to say all of them because I've been sitting here for almost 6 hours talking. So I can't remember everybody. I don't know. But grateful for everybody who came in and shared thoughts. The money, all of the proceeds that came from people's tickets today are going to our 3 nonprofits that we mentioned. Let me make sure that I'm not sure that I've even said all 3 of them. Foundation for Vancouver Public Schools, CREDC, and what's the third one? The third one is something about meals, family meals. I think that's the third one. Alicia will, yes, Family Meals, PDX. If you want to hear anything more from this group of people, you can find us on social media. Tag Table Agency Group on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Our website is tableagencygroup.com. And we will be sending out post-event resources, so kind of some summaries of what people talked about while they were here, and any resources that people mentioned will be sent out in that post-event email as well. So the tools that Mark and Casey talked about, the articles that Dawn referenced, and a few other resources too. So if I had to, since I've still got about 41 people on here, if I had to kind of summarize things, I also do want to thank Karen so much. So Karen Servin, who was our illustrator and put together all the great illustrations, I'll mention her one more time too. So our first section, perspective, where we really learned about how to try to see things through the eyes of our customers and just be honest, pause and go inward and think about who we are. Lean on our teams to get all of their perspectives. As we moved into section 2 and we talked about connection, Casey had such great comments there talking about really leaning into having authentic relationships that were dependent on the success of others, yielding very large results. And then we moved into opportunity. So knowing that anytime that we are experiencing turmoil, it is going to be making us stronger, but also giving ourselves the grace to just make it through by keeping ourselves sane as well. So that's all, okay? We're ending just a tiny bit early, but again, I'm very grateful for everybody who joined us today, and we will look forward to doing more of these. And we will talk to you soon. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Have a good rest of your day.